Forget marble statues. The ancient world was a grim spectacle, run by divine hunters who demanded human sacrifice and destroyed lives on a whim. We're peeling back the layers of their madness. This is Shroud of Lore.
For the sake of plunder, the heroes of Greece left a comrade to waste away in agony, nearly harmed their own infant, and prepared to sacrifice a daughter on the altar. Also a dark prophecy of a serpent devouring nestlings might be fulfilled and open the path to the riches of doomed Troy. But these horrors did not happen all at once. They unfolded slowly, like poison spreading through healthy flesh, each atrocity making the next one easier. It began with the wind. Or rather, with the absence of wind. Agamemnon stood on the shore of Olympus, watching 1,000 ships rot in the harbor. 6 weeks they had waited. 6 weeks of dead air, flat seas, sails hanging limp as shrouds. The greatest fleet ever assembled, carrying the greatest warriors Greece had ever produced, and they could not move a single mile toward Troy. The men were growing restless. Fights broke out daily in the camps. Supplies dwindled. Warriors who had left their homes burning with glory lust now muttered about omens and cursed expeditions. Some had already slipped away in the night, rowing home in small boats rather than wait for a wind that might never come. Agamemnon felt his command crumbling like wet sand. The goddess is angry, Calchas the seer announced at the war council. The old prophet's eyes were milky with visions, his voice thin as dried reeds. Artemis holds the winds hostage. She demands payment before she will release them. What payment? Agamemnon demanded. Royal blood. Calchas smiled, and there was something terrible in that smile. The life of your firstborn daughter, King of Kings. Iphigenia must be given to Artemis on her altar, or the fleet will never sail. The tent fell silent. Agamemnon felt the eyes of every king and hero upon him, Odysseus with his calculating gaze, Achilles with his restless energy, Menelaus with his desperate need for the war that would reclaim his stolen wife. They were all waiting to see what he would do. No, Agamemnon said. The word came out hoarse, barely audible. I will not give up my own child. Then we go home, Odysseus said quietly. The oath dies here. Helen remains in Troy. And you, Agamemnon, you will be remembered as the king who assembled the greatest army in history and then sent it home because he could not pay the price of passage. The price is my daughter's life. The price is what the gods demand. Odysseus' voice held no sympathy. You wanted to lead this expedition. You wanted the glory of sacking Troy. Did you think glory came free? Agamemnon looked around the tent. He saw no allies, no mercy, no way out. These men had left their homes and families for the promise of Trojan gold. They had sworn oaths, made sacrifices, invested everything in this war. And now they were being told that one man's love for his daughter stood between them and their destiny. He could see the calculation in their eyes. One girl against the wealth of a kingdom. One life against the glory of 1,000. I need time, Agamemnon said. Time to think. The men grow more restless each day, Menelaus said. His voice was hard, this was his wife they were sailing to reclaim, his honor at stake. Time is a luxury we do not have, brother. That night, Agamemnon walked alone on the beach. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent to his torment. Somewhere far away, in Mycenae, his daughter Iphigenia was sleeping peacefully, dreaming whatever dreams young women dream, utterly unaware that her father was deciding whether she would live or die. He tried to imagine the alternative. Sailing home in disgrace. Watching his alliance crumble, his reputation collapse, his legacy become a joke whispered in taverns. The king who could not pay the fare. The leader who loved one girl more than the fate of nations. And then, the thought crept in like a serpent, Iphigenia would die someday anyway. Everyone died. But the glory of Troy, the wealth of Priam's treasure houses, the immortal fame of the conqueror, that would last forever. What was one life against eternity? Agamemnon stood on the shore until dawn, and when the sun rose, something inside him had died. He returned to the council tent with new orders. "Send a message to Mycenae," he told his herald. "Tell my wife that Achilles has requested Iphigenia's hand in marriage. Tell her to bring our daughter to Olympus immediately for the wedding." The lie tasted like ashes in his mouth. But the words were spoken, and they could not be taken back. Iphigenia arrived 12 days later, glowing with joy. Agamemnon watched her chariot approach through the camp, watched her wave excitedly at the assembled warriors, watched her face shine with the innocent happiness of a bride-to-be. She had dressed in her finest gown. She had braided flowers into her hair. She believed she was coming to marry the greatest hero in Greece. She had no idea what truly awaited her. The camp itself had grown darker in her absence. Just days before, Odysseus had convinced the kings to abandon Philoctetes on a barren island, the great archer writhing with a festering wound, his cries of betrayal fading across the water as the ships rowed away. They had taken his sacred bow but left the man to suffer alone. And there were whispers of other compromises, hostages exchanged, oaths bent, small cruelties justified by the greater cause. The war had not yet begun, but already the heroes were learning to swallow their honor in pieces. Agamemnon told himself Iphigenia's sacrifice was different. Necessary. Divine. He almost believed it. Clytemnestra descended from the chariot and embraced her husband with a warmth that made his skin crawl with guilt. "Where is Achilles? I wish to meet my daughter's betrothed. He is preparing. The wedding will take place at the temple of Artemis, at sunset." Every word was a nail in his own coffin. "You should rest after your journey. Both of you." He could not look at Iphigenia. He could not bear to see her joy, knowing what waited for her at that temple. Instead, he fled to his tent and drank until the wine turned his thoughts to fog. But Clytemnestra was no fool. She found him that evening, her eyes sharp with suspicion. "I spoke with Achilles," she said. "He knows nothing of this marriage. He seemed confused when I thanked him for honoring our daughter." Agamemnon's blood turned to ice. "He is modest. Heroes often do not lie to me." Her voice cut like a blade. "What is happening here, husband? Why did you summon our daughter to this place?" He should have told her then. Should have confessed everything, begged her forgiveness, found some other way. But the faces of the other kings floated before him, Odysseus, Menelaus, the 1,000 warriors rotting in the harbor, all waiting for him to pay the price of passage. "It is nothing," he said. "A misunderstanding. The wedding will proceed as planned." Clytemnestra studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw in his face made her take a step back, her hand rising to her throat as if she suddenly felt the need to protect it. "If you are lying to me," she said slowly, "if you have brought our daughter here for any purpose other than what you promised, I will never forgive you, Agamemnon. Not in this life. Not in the next." She left. And Agamemnon sat alone with the wine and the silence and the weight of what he was about to do. The next morning, Iphigenia came to him. She was so beautiful, so alive, so utterly trusting. She sat at his feet the way she had as a child and chattered about the wedding, what she would wear, what songs would be sung, how nervous she was to meet her new husband properly. She asked if Achilles was kind, if he would treat her well, if she would be allowed to visit home after the war. Agamemnon listened and said nothing. Each word from her lips was a knife sliding between his ribs. "Father?" She looked up at him with those innocent eyes. "Are you proud of me?" He could not speak. He pulled her into an embrace instead, holding her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair, trying to memorize the feeling of his living daughter in his arms. "I am proud," he managed at last. "I have always been proud." That afternoon, Calchas came to confirm the arrangements. The altar was prepared. The priests were ready. The goddess waited for her due. "It must be tonight," the seer said. "The signs are clear. Any further delay will anger Artemis beyond appeasement. Agamemnon nodded. There was nothing left to say. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold, he walked to his daughter's tent to escort her to the temple. She emerged in her bridal white, radiant as the dawn, still believing she was walking toward her future. In a way, she was. Just not the future she imagined. The sun was setting. The hour had come. Agamemnon walked toward the temple of Artemis with legs that felt like stone columns. Around him, the army had gathered, 1,000 warriors come to witness what they believed was a wedding, what was actually a sacrifice. Only the inner circle knew the truth: Odysseus, Menelaus, Calchas, and the priests who would perform the ritual. Iphigenia waited at the altar, radiant in her bridal white. She had been confused when told that Achilles would not stand beside her, that this was a different kind of ceremony, but she trusted her father. She smiled at him as he approached, and that smile was worse than any wound. "Father," she said. "I am so happy. I never dreamed I would marry such a great hero." Agamemnon could not speak. His throat had closed around the words he should say, the truth, the warning, the apology that could never be enough. Instead, he simply nodded and took his place beside the altar. Calchas began the ritual prayers. The priests prepared the sacred implements. And slowly, terribly, Iphigenia began to understand. "Father?" Her voice wavered. "What is happening? Why are the priests looking at me like that?" "The goddess requires a sacrifice," Calchas intoned. "Royal blood, to purchase the winds. You have been chosen, princess." "No." Iphigenia stepped back, her eyes wild with sudden terror. "No, this cannot be. Father, tell them this is a mistake. Tell them." Agamemnon said nothing. He could not move, could not speak, could not do anything but stand frozen while his daughter's world collapsed around her. "Father!" She was screaming now, struggling against the priests who had seized her arms. "Father, please! I am your daughter. I am your firstborn. You cannot do this." The army watched in silence. 1,000 men who had come expecting joy, now witnessing horror. Some turned away. Others watched with grim acceptance, the price of war, the cost of glory. This was what they had signed up for, was not it? This was what heroes did. Achilles pushed through the crowd, his face twisted with rage. "Release her. This is not the wedding I was promised. This is murder." "It is sacrifice," Calchas said calmly. "Divine necessity. The goddess demands, the goddess can demand all she wants. I will not let you harm an innocent girl in my name." Achilles drew his sword, placing himself between Iphigenia and the priests. "Anyone who touches her faces me." For a moment, hope flickered in Agamemnon's frozen heart. Achilles, the greatest warrior alive, standing against the sacrifice. Perhaps this could be stopped. Perhaps his daughter could be saved. Then Odysseus spoke. "And then what, son of Peleus? You save one girl, and the fleet rots in this harbor forever. The oath dies. Helen remains stolen. Every man here goes home empty-handed, remembering that Achilles, the great Achilles, chose one Mycenaean princess over the honor of all Greece." Achilles' sword wavered. His eyes moved across the assembled warriors, his myrmidons, the other kings, the countless soldiers who had followed him here expecting glory and gold. They were all watching him, waiting to see what he would choose. "Is this who you are?" Odysseus continued, his voice soft as poison. "A man who breaks his oath for sentiment. A hero who abandons his comrades because he cannot stomach the price of victory." The sword lowered. Achilles stepped back, his face a mask of self-loathing, and Iphigenia screamed as the priest seized her again. "Father!" She was sobbing now, all dignity gone, reduced to a terrified child begging for her life. "Please! I do not want to die. I'll do anything, I'll serve the goddess, I'll never marry, please, father, please. Agamemnon closed his eyes. He could not watch. He could not bear to see what he had done, what he was allowing, what he had become. The ritual began. And in that moment, as the priests raised their hands to the heavens, Agamemnon finally understood the true nature of the prophecy. The serpent devouring nestlings. He had thought it meant Troy, the Greek army consuming Priam's children, his city, his legacy. But now he saw the truth. The serpent was not Greece. The serpent was him. He was devouring his own child, his own humanity, his own soul. The gods had not demanded this sacrifice. They had merely offered the opportunity. They had placed the choice before him and asked, how far will you go? What will you become? How much of yourself will you destroy for the promise of gold and glory? And he had answered. They all had. The priests' voices rose to a crescendo. Light exploded across the altar. Agamemnon was thrown backward, blinded by a radiance that seemed to burn through his closed eyelids. He heard screaming, his own, his daughter's, 1,000 voices crying out in terror and awe. When he could finally see again, the altar was empty. Where Iphigenia had knelt, a white deer lay motionless on the sacred stones. His daughter was gone. Vanished. Taken. Artemis, Calchas breathed, falling to his knees. The goddess has accepted the offering. She has taken the princess to serve in her temple. The winds will blow. As if in answer, a gust swept through the harbor, the first breath of air in 6 weeks. Sails snapped and filled. The dead calm was broken. The army erupted in cheers. Men embraced each other, laughing with relief, already forgetting the horror they had witnessed. The war could continue. Troy awaited. Glory was still within reach. Agamemnon did not cheer. He stood alone at the altar, staring at the deer that had replaced his daughter. Saved, they said. Taken to serve the goddess. But what did that mean? Would he ever see her again? Would she grow old in some distant temple, hating the father who had been willing to give her up? He had not stopped the ritual. In that final moment, he had not intervened. Whatever divine intervention had occurred, it did not change what he had chosen. Clytemnestra found him there as the camp erupted in celebration around them. Her face was pale, her eyes red from weeping, but there was something else in her expression now. Something cold and sharp as a blade. She is gone, Clytemnestra said. It was not a question. The goddess took her. She lives. She lives as a prisoner. A hostage to divine whim. Because you could not say no. Clytemnestra's voice was utterly flat. You lured her here with lies. You would have let them take her. For what? Ships? Gold? A stolen woman? For Greece? For honor? For nothing. She stepped closer, and Agamemnon saw something in her eyes that made his blood freeze. Not grief. Not even anger. Something colder, more patient, more terrible. Go to your war, husband. Win your glory. Sack your city and steal your treasures. But know this, I will remember this day. I will remember what you were willing to do. And when you return home, victorious and proud, I will be waiting. She turned and walked away. Agamemnon watched her go, understanding with sudden clarity that his wife had just become something far more dangerous than an enemy. He had bought his wind with his daughter's fate. He had purchased his war with his marriage. And the true cost was only beginning to come due. The fleet sailed the next morning. 1,000 ships cutting through waters that had been still for 6 weeks, carrying warriors who had proven exactly how far they would go for gold and glory. Agamemnon stood at the prow of his flagship, watching the coast of Olympus fade into the distance. Somewhere on that shore, a stained altar marked the spot where he had become a monster. Somewhere in the heavens, his daughter served a goddess who had watched him choose ambition over love. Somewhere behind him, his wife was already planning a homecoming he would not survive. The serpent had devoured its nestlings. The prophecy was fulfilled, just not in the way anyone had expected. Agamemnon looked toward the horizon, toward Troy, toward the war that would consume the next 10 years of his life. He had won the right to fight for Helen, to sack Priam's city, to claim immortal fame. And it had only cost him everything that made victory worth having. The wind filled his sails, carrying him toward glory that would taste like ashes, toward triumph that would end at the hands of those he had betrayed, toward a homecoming his wife was already preparing. The heroes of Greece sailed to war. And not one of them noticed that they had already lost.